Hey, good morning. Let's go over today's trade plan. So in the overnight session, the market failed a little bit ahead of the 35 half high volume node, and from there we saw the market liquidate down into the 1675 support where responsive buyers stepped in. Now heading into the open, our short-term bias is neutral bearish, and how the market responds to pre-market support at 16 half to 18 half and the initial resistance zone at 24.75 to 27 quarter is going to help us determine our real-time intraday bias. So we know that the sell side is in firm control heading into the open, but then after the open, we need to see trend down conditions in order for the market to continue liquidating, and a break below 16.5 to 18.5 would further confirm the bearish bias that was in play in the overnight session. That would bring last week's low at 12 half into play and the initial support zone at 08 quarter to 11 quarter. Now that is still a valid area of support, and responsive buyers can be active there on first test. In the event that the market fails to hold 08 quarter to 11 quarter, we can still get responsive buyers active at the 2400 quarter to 2402 quarter zone, and that also marks a range extreme. On the upside, the main area of resistance is 24.75 to 27 quarter, and sellers need to hold ES below the initial resistance zone if they are going to continue to be in firm control during the day session. So if the market bounces, let's say, back up and takes out 24.75 to 27 quarter, then it would invalidate the overnight bearishness, and from there we could go back up to 30 half to 31 half. That's a minor area of resistance, and we could even test 34 half to 36 half. That's a spot where sell side can still be active, and then beyond that we have resistance at 38 half, and finally 40 half to 43 half, which marks the all-time high. But in order for that to happen, we would have to see some pretty decent upside momentum. So the main question today is whether this overnight liquidation move is going to continue. And in order for it to continue, we need to see trend down conditions in real time. Now, given that ES is set to open on a pretty big gap lower, we know that the advanced decline line is going to open in quite negative territory. That's a given. So what we want to see is not just a negative advanced decline line, but a negative AD line that is then trending lower and continuing to weaken throughout the day. We want to see the NYC tick holding below zero. We want that tick distribution to be bearish if the sellers are to maintain control. Now, if on the other hand, we start seeing upside momentum in real time and an upward trending advanced decline line, that would be a signal that clearly it is not developing into a trend down day. And in that case, we can continue to balance within a range. And that's why our short-term bias is not all out bearish. Despite the liquidation move in the overnight session, our bias is neutral bearish. That means that we still have to be open to the possibility of the market heading higher, but that is something that we'll need to assess in real time. Now, by default, below initial resistance, we're going to give more edge to the sell side, but with the understanding that in order for the market to continue to break down below pre-market support, we need to see some sustained downside momentum, a negative and downward trending advanced decline line, and ideally participation from the other markets as well. And then if we do get that break below the 16 half to 18 half, that would serve as a confirmation of the bearish trend, and then we could go down into 08 quarter to 11 quarter, and we know that that's still a spot where responsive buyers can be active. From there, back on the upside, the 16 half to 18 half broken support can act as resistance, and in the event that we take out 16 half to 18 half, then our bias can be much more neutral on the day time frame. But in the event that we only get a small reaction at 08 quarter to 11 quarter and we start balancing at that zone and balancing at lower prices, that would not really be a good sign for buyers, and then eventually we may even take the 08 quarter to 11 quarter zone out for a push down into 2400 quarter to 2402 quarter, and that again is still a spot where responsive buyers can be active. So it's still an area where there could be a potential long setup on the day time frame for a reaction back up towards 08 quarter to 11 quarter. So those are the main ideas heading into the open. Let's see if the sell side can maintain the firm control that we've seen in the overnight session, and we'll take it from there.